Bay on the west coast. Take in glacier views at Franz Josef. Journey on the spectacular Transalpine. Discover Ferrymead Heritage Park and the charm of Akaroa with a superb nature cruise. Second up, a 5-day tour to the Taranaki Garden Festival, departing November 5th. Get lost in New Zealand's premier garden showcase. Explore the hidden gems of Taranaki's private gardens and experience the world-renowned Hamilton Gardens. Drive the Forgotten World Highway, enjoy a pub lunch, sightsee around the majestic Mount Taranaki, indulge in a vineyard dinner and so much more. For all the details, phone Travelwise Holidays on 0800 11 60 60. But don't delay as places are limited. That's Travelwise Holidays, 0800 11 60 60.
There is such a thing as a wardrobe heaven, you know. 20 stunning wardrobe sets to take your breath away. So it better be a Boston, because you don't buy a wardrobe often.
In Auckland on 89.4, this is Newstalk ZB. Mike Hosking, Francesca Rudkin, Ryan Bridge, Barry Soper, all the names you can trust. This is Newstalk ZB News.
It's 10 o'clock. I'm Susie Nordquist. Residents in Auckland's Grey Lynn are feeling shaken after a shooting last night, which has left one person dead. Authorities were alerted to the sounds of gunshots on Tuarangi Road just before 7. One person with critical injuries died at the scene, and 3 others are in hospital with gunshot wounds. The Herald's Jamie Lith says locals are on high alert.
Neighbours heard shouting and a gunshot overnight. Some neighbours said they felt frightened after what they heard.
Police will shortly give an update on a woman's unexplained death on the coast out from Dargaville, blindsiding her family. Joanna Sione Luaki's body was found at the start of last month between Omamari and Aranga beaches. Police are asking for sightings of a white 2012 Toyota Hilux flat deck ute with no registration plates, an orange hazard light on the roof and dog cages on the back. Her family weren't aware of today's police update, which is due at 10:30. Her widower had been called into the police station on Wednesday, but there was no discussion about any major breakthrough. At PIC, the Reserve Bank will cut the official cash rate again next month before pausing for summer. NZIER has released its quarterly predictions, forecasting the central bank won't cut a third time in November, rather preferring to wait to resume measured easing in February. Principal economist Christina Long says the impact of cuts will flow through quickly, given the proportion of mortgages due for repricing in the next 6 months.
So we feel that it makes sense for the Reserve Bank to pause in order to assess the impact of the OCR cuts that it would have undertaken by then.
Councils have until 5 p.m. today to decide what they want to do about Māori wards. The government has given them the option of either dropping their Māori ward altogether or keeping them in place until a public referendum next year. Most councils have opted to keep them, with only Kaipara District Council deciding to scrap them, and Upper Hutt City Council has reversed its decision to establish them. Far North District Council is set to make its decision today. New research is reinforcing the need for hard and rapid response against foot and mouth disease. New Zealand Institute of Economic Research analysis shows it would cost the country $1.25 billion in lost export revenue every month. Cabinet has endorsed an approach of urgent eradication, along with the use of vaccination if appropriate. NZIER economist Chris Nixon says stamping it out is the only option.
Once we're infected, we have to undergo a stand-down period, and that would be, for a smaller outbreak, something like 3 months.
Porter's ski area in Canterbury is facing an abrupt end to its winter season. Recent rain and strong warm winds have hammered the site and decimated their snowpack. Porter's Alpine Resort says they are devastated, and while they hope to open today, Saturday's forecast looks to spell the end of the season. It would be 2 weeks ahead of last year's early finish. NZ Ski Chief Executive Paul Anderson says it is tough for porters to have had a rough year.
It's important for the whole industry that we're all up and running, because a lot of people want to ski in Canterbury and we want all the mountains to be open. That encourages more people to ski.
To Newstalk ZB Sport, the rugby calendar continues to potentially move in a different direction from 2026 after news of an All Blacks tour to South Africa. The Sydney Morning Herald reports a Bledisloe Cup test is also likely in Perth on Anzac Day that year as part of a wider festival on the game, which will include a Super Rugby Super Round. International rugby coverage with Access Solutions, elevating you and your business to a higher level. A potential blow to the prospect of future one-on-one athletics duels after Armand Duplantis' 100-metre exhibition race win over Karsten Warholm in Zurich. The Norwegian has pulled up lame with hamstring tightness after being pipped by a tenth of a second, forcing his withdrawal from the 400-metre hurdles in the Diamond League meet at the same venue. However, he made good on a wager and was seen sporting Duplantis' Swedish colours inside the stadium. Duplantis won his pole vault competition, but with the best clearance of 5.82 metres, 44 centimetres below his world record. Boxing promoter David Higgins sees a benefit to cruiserweight David Nika's change in opponent for the Duco Events card in Auckland next Saturday. American Tommy Capensi has stepped up late to replace Australian Blake Caparello after he failed a drug test. Higgins says Capensi's fighting approach will suit Nika.
He's got quite an entertaining style, more so than Blake. Blake was more that defensive style that can make you look bad. Capensi comes forward and actually brings the fight, so it could be quite explosive.
And San Marino football fans are rejoicing. Or, translated into English, San Marino 1, Liechtenstein 0. The team has won a second match in its history, mirroring their previous victory against the same opponent in April 2004. They remain last for now in the world rankings, anchoring the table at 210. Liechtenstein are 199th. I'm Andrew Alderson, and that's Newstalk ZB News and Sport with roofbuddy.co.nz. Everything you need under one roof. It's 10:05.
Newstalk ZB Auckland. Time saver traffic.
Good morning on the northern. Still very heavy gravel to Sunnysnook City bound. State Highway 16, it is heavy eastbound either side of Old North Road. The northwestern, moderate city bound between Bond Street to Newton, otherwise a great run. The southern is moderate at Mount Wellington and another moderate patch, Market Road through to Spaghetti Junction. Anything else, update us by calling through on 0800 JAMMED, which is 0800 52 66 33. Tim Roxburgh for Time Saver Traffic.
Newstalk ZB Weather Watch 24/7 with Panasonic OLED TVs. Be mesmerised with next-gen AI. Manukau and Waitemata, southwest 10 knots, rising to 15 this morning. Hauraki Gulf southwest 15, rising to 20 this afternoon. A strong wind advisory for Breamhead to Cape Colville, southwest 15 but 20 about Colville Channel. The next high tide at Auckland is 20 to 10 tonight, and at Onehonga 20 past 12 this afternoon. Today in Auckland, partly cloudy and a few showers clearing in the evening. Southwesterlies will be fresh in the afternoon. Tomorrow mostly cloudy with a chance of a shower or two, and westerlies becoming strong at night. Today's high is 17 degrees, the low is 13. Right now we've got 14.
Have your say on the big stories of the day. It's Kerre Woodham Mornings with pinnaclelife.co.nz. Easy online life insurance. Newstalk ZB.
Newstalk ZB, it is 7 minutes past 10. Time once again for our quarterly catch-up with Labour leader Chris Hipkins and opposition leader. Here for the hour, if you have any sensible questions for the leader of the...
Let's not limit ourselves here, Kerre.
Well, do you want to see some of them? If you have any questions for the leader of the opposition, text them through or give us a call, which would be our preference, on 0800 80 10 80. We'll get straight into things. Good morning, Chris, and happy birthday.
Thank you. That was yesterday.
Yeah, I know.
And now we're back into it again.
Well, I'm of an age where I have birthday years now, not just birthday days.
That sounds like a great concept. I love it.
Yeah, it's a very good thing to do. Bipartisanship. I think a lot of us would love to see you guys getting together as major parties and coming up with a plan of attack and allowing for, okay, I'm not really big on cycleways, but I understand you are Labour, so we'll give you a cycleway as part of our top 10. You can give us a road and let's have that.
I think people underestimate how much bipartisanship there is already. So if I think about the law changes that go through Parliament, for example, I'd say plus percent of that would be relatively bipartisan. There's not a lot of dissent about it and so on. I think what we've seen, which is a little different, and particularly in the last, since the election, is that there has been more partisanship when it comes to things like infrastructure investment. So, new government came in, they put a whole lot of things on hold that were already underway. And I'm not saying that our previous government in 2017 didn't do that. I don't think we did it to the extent that they have done it, but it does happen when there's a change of government. And I do think that there's a valid argument that says that just slows everything down. A lot of that stuff still needs to happen anyway, and you should just get on with it. So what I've said is I think that's a fair request. So when we come into government, yes, our priorities for spending might be different, but if something's started, we're not going to stop it just because it wasn't our priority. We want to keep it going. Because what we've seen, if you look at the numbers, there's 8,000 fewer people working just in building and construction alone since the election. And that's because everything slowed down as the government's reassessed its priorities. I just think that was unnecessary. I think if they had continued, they should have just continued the school projects, the hospital projects and so on, and said, yes, but we're going to change what's further on in the pipeline. So as new projects get started, there'll be different priorities from the last government. I think that would have actually meant that we didn't get the big slowdown in that sector that we've seen.
That was slowing down before the election, though. There was a slowdown in pipeline work before the election.
Some yes, but the government has exacerbated, has added to it. So take state house builds, for example. 2023, we built a record number. Next year, they'll build none. That has an impact on that industry at a time when the private market for house builds is slowing down. The government pulling the pin on all of its house building has also slowed the market down.
But a lot of the builds that were undertaken under Labor had been started by National anyway, because they were responding to the fact that there weren't enough state houses being built. They'd started, you continued. Also, National was questioning, do they need to be that bespoke? And I think that is that not a relevant question?
Largely they're not. So if you look at I just visited a housing development. Where was I earlier in the week? I'm just trying to remember where I was. But I'd visited a housing development where it was in somewhere in the Waikato, I think, where they had it was in Whangarei. There you go. Very different from the Waikato, but you lose track.
Starts with W.
Yeah. And so, but they had built 5 houses. They were all the same. And it works really well because you get a standard design, you can replicate it. That's how a lot of the original state houses were built.
That's right. But
it works really well.
A lot of the newer ones aren't or weren't.
I don't think that's true. I mean, I think where you've got difficult sites, and some of the sites they're working to now do need a bit of customisation for the sites. So if I look at school building, I think this idea of bespoke design is sometimes a bit overstated.
That was a criticism of the previous government's school buildings.
But it's not.
They're saying prefabs will do.
But I don't think it's a valid one, because as Minister of Education in 2018, I got the Ministry of Education to do a standard design catalogue, and I used to have it sitting on my desk. It was a big A3 thing, and schools were basically given the catalogue and said, you can pick these and you can change the colour, you can do a few things, but by and large you can just pick from the catalogue. Where the bespoke designs came in was largely to do with geography rather than school needs. So take Wainuiomata High School, we did a big redevelopment there. It was built on a swamp. So suddenly the designs had to change because the foundations had to go lower in order to build on a swamp. Wellington Girls, a school that you might be familiar with, that is a very small site on a hill right over the top of a fault line. Needs slightly different design to others.
Wouldn't you want to know that it was a swamp before you picked it as a site to build?
Well, unfortunately, that was picked years ago, and there isn't a whole lot of other available land to build a school in a different place, unfortunately. So we're stuck with what was chosen 50, 60 years ago.
It does take enormous cojones to spend billions of dollars on an infrastructure project. Enormous. But it takes even bigger ones to stop it, to say we're throwing good money after bad.
Well, yeah, but I don't think that that's what the government have necessarily done. So if you take the roads of national significance that they have committed to, there's an economic analysis that estimates the economic benefit that you get out of the road for every dollar that you put in. It's called a BCR ratio. Many of those roads have a BCR ratio of 1, i.e. you're getting $1 of economic return out of every dollar that you spend. even in the worst case scenario, the Inter-Island Ferry project had a BCR of more than 4, between 4 and 5. So it was still delivering a higher return for every dollar spent than a lot of the roads of national significance were. And that was on the worst case scenario. Now, I think the worst case scenario was unacceptable. I think the landside infrastructure costs had blown out.
That was it.
Yeah, and we as a government said we weren't going to fund them based on what Kiwi Rail were asking for. We still thought you could order the ferries and you could do the landside infrastructure cheaper. We certainly weren't giving them the blank cheque to do the most expensive option.
When it comes to spending, there's only so much money we can spend anyway. And that's only going to get worse as we've got an ageing population. Hopefully the Cullen Fund will take care of the super costs, but we've got big healthcare costs around an ageing population. And that's I think it's a really unfair burden to put on young ones.
I think we've got to be honest as a country about two things in this area. One is the cost of the infrastructure that we're going to need to build, and the other is the cost of the services that we're going to need to provide. So if you take the over 65 population, if we go back to 2013, the key English government, the over 65 population was about 14% of the population. About 200,000 people have joined the over 65 since then. It's now about 16% of the population. Go another 2 years ahead, and that's going to go up to 1.2 million people, i.e. about 21% of the population. That's going to increase government spending, not just because of superannuation, but because of the extra healthcare that over 65s consume that younger people don't. And we're going to have to be honest about that. It's going to increase government spending, or we're going to have to cut either health care that's available or superannuation. We don't need to, but if we have this arbitrary constraint that says we're going to keep government spending at 30% of GDP, which successive governments have committed to over a long period of time, then we're not going to be able to afford all of the things that New Zealanders expect us to pay for.
So you want to see that lifted. Treasury has advised that 30% is sensible. Anything over that is for crises. Surely an ageing population is something that could have been foreseen, as we saw with the Cullen Fund.
Well, I think you have to be clear about what you're increasing government spending for and what. So borrowing, if we take borrowing for example, then we are going to need to increase borrowing to pay for the longer term assets that we will pay off over the life of those assets. The current government are proposing to do that anyway.
But they're looking at private-public partnerships.
Yeah, but you still have to pay.
Yeah, of course.
Someone's still got to pay.
But not all of it. They're looking at...
Well, no, you actually, through a PPP, you pay more because the private sector's cost of capital is higher than the government's cost of capital. You just spread the cost over a longer period. But the taxpayer actually ultimately ends up paying more through a PPP than they do if the government just funds it up front. And so,
it'll be a harder sell.
Well, it's not a harder sell because ultimately, you're mortgaging the future. You're basically pushing it to a future generation to pay a bigger cost in order to defer some of the costs that you might otherwise pay today. So I think, again, we need to have an honest conversation with Kiwis about that and say, if you want to have the infrastructure investment now, either you can use private equity, which you'll pay more for in the longer term, or you can do government borrowing, which you'll pay less for in the longer term. Either way, you've got to do one of those two things. You can't just magic the cash up out of nowhere.
So you'd be willing to go back to Treasury and say, look, we're going to have to raise that threshold that you think is sensible because we just don't have enough money?
I think the debt threshold is definitely something we should talk about because ultimately we're just not going to be able to put the infrastructure in place. We've got billions and billions of dollars of infrastructure that we need to pay for. We're not going to be able to do that unless we increase borrowing or get capital injection from somewhere else. So if you look at even the government's roading projects, they've released them this week. There's billions of dollars every year that's unfunded. They have no idea how they're going to pay for it. Now, they talk about things like value capture, which is another name for capital gains tax. Basically, they're saying we're going to capture the increased value of the land around where these roads are built, and we're going to tax that, and we're going to use that to pay for the roads. That's something you do after you've built the road. You can't do that ahead of building the road, which means you still have to pay to build the road. So you're going to be borrowing for that. You might have a new revenue source to pay back the borrowing, i.e. a capital gains tax or value capture tax, however you want to structure it, but you're still going to have to pay for it somehow.
What billion-dollar infrastructure projects are you proudest of that your government built over the past 6 years?
I think if you look at none of the big infrastructure projects that cost billions of dollars are finished in a 5-year window.
No, of course they're not. But I mean, what
the hospital? So Dunedin Hospital, really proud that that's well underway. If you look at the other many of the school rebuilding projects that we started, and many of them are underway, not finished, but they're big school rebuilding projects. Some of the roading projects, the rail projects. These are things which I think will make a difference. We spend a lot of money on rail, to be frank, billions of dollars on rail, largely just to keep the railway system as it was, because it was so badly run down that we were going to have to close large parts of it if we didn't spend a lot of money maintaining them.
We'll take a short break. Hopefully we'll come back with some of your questions. 0800 80 1080. It's 10:18.
iHeartRadio. It's not for everyone. In fact, it's exclusively for you. Your choice of music, your choice of radio, and your choice of podcasts. iHeartRadio.
If you've moved from the city to a lifestyle block, chances are you've taken your city insurance with you. But you might find your standard home, car and contents policies don't quite cover everything you need them to. Things like electric fences, portable pumps, horses, livestock and even quad bikes. To uncover what you need to cover, get in touch with FMG, your award-winning rural insurance specialists. Head to fmg.co.nz or better still, give us a call on 0800 366 466.
Getting your home looking its best is easy because Danske Møbler Furniture is having a bestsellers sale. Enjoy best price savings on their best-selling designs for every room. At Danske Møbler, furniture for living.
In Sky City Casino, as the roulette wheel spins, as the dice tumble, as the dealer turns a card, listen. It's the sound of anticipation. Play at Sky City Casino and feel it. R20 game responsibly.
At the Bear Spot Whangaparaoa, we have our head in the McLeods this month.
Because we're hosting the second Paint and Pint with our good friends from the north. It's a coasty collab.
Come along on the 26th of September and paint some happy little trees, seas, and, well, clouds. Taking inspiration from McLeod's iconic can designs, which hero our gorgeous coastal landscapes.
So let those creative juices flow and grab tickets for you and your mates from Eventbrite.
Ticket prices even include your first drink, plus the paint supplies for you to take home.
Just don't drink the paint.
I thought this hazy tasted more bitter than normal.
Today, up and down the country, trusted mechanics at Auto Super Shops did an oil change in Auckland, installed a new sat-nav in the Naki, and sorted some shocks down south. We fixed a clutch kit in Canterbury, a warrant in Waikato, and bled some brakes in the Bay. We also serviced a classic in the capital and modified a muffler in Manawatu. So, for quality servicing and repairs nationwide, call 0800 455 655.
It's the place to stop, your Auto Super Shops.
We're New Zealand's mechanic.
Your weekend sorted with Canvas, a lifestyle magazine that checks the pulse of the arts and music, culture and performance, reveals the latest in technology, design and fashion, explores film and literature, offers a taste of the finer things in food and beverage. Whether you want thought-provoking, insightful, inspiring or simply absorbing, Canvas has your weekend sorted. In the Weekend Herald.
The hard questions and the analysis. It's Heather Duplessis-Allen Drive.
It's been revealed today that Watercare in Auckland has struck a secret deal to pay Waikato's Tainui iwi $20 million. Dave Chambers is the chief executive at Watercare. Why'd you keep it a secret?
If we had our time again, we wouldn't do that. Well, as I said, I can only apologise for what's happened in the past.
You owe me an explanation.
Heather Duplessis-Allen Drive with One New Zealand. Back today at 4, only on Newstalk ZB.
Newstalk ZB. Robbie. No, not Robbie. Sorry. Clint, good morning to you.
Good morning, Kerre. How are you?
Very well, thanks.
Excellent. Just two things. I wanted to just ask Chris, and happy birthday for yesterday, about two things. You've said, and I think it's great that you guys work together, and obviously behind the scenes that we don't see, you work together a lot. You said you're not going to drop things just because it isn't your idea, and I praise that. But a couple of weeks ago, you're on record saying oil and gas will stop immediately when you guys get back in power, which seems disingenuous. So I'd like to know what you think about that. And secondly, when you were in power, you bought up a lot of first-time buyer housing stock at above market rates, which really messed up the market. And we're obviously at a bit of a problem with housing at the moment. How will you fix that if you get back in?
Yeah, I think on the issue of oil and gas, we haven't said that we would stop oil and gas immediately on coming into government. We've said that we would do something similar to what we did last time. Last time we honoured all of the existing permits, all of the existing blocks that were out there, and we would do the same again. And, the reality, we do have to face up to some realities, though. We haven't had a new permit issued since 2004. So even though the key government were out there saying we want more oil and gas exploration, they weren't able to achieve that. And we haven't had a new find of oil and gas since about 2001, I think. So we have to be realistic that, the commercial realities of oil and gas exploration are stacking up against significant new oil and gas exploration in New Zealand, regardless of what the government does. So that's why we want to see an acceleration of renewable electricity. It's ultimately cheaper and actually can be developed faster than oil and gas. Even if we found gas today, it's probably, at least sort of 7 or 8 years if they're moving really fast before we would actually be able to use that to generate electricity.
I think that's fair enough, as long as you're just being open and looking at it. And I don't think there is a whole bunch of oil and gas left, but that's great. Thanks for that, Chris.
And on the issue around rentals, I actually do think that's a fair thing. I think as a government we need to shift from buying existing homes to building new ones. Yeah. And I don't think we should be competing with first home buyers to buy more houses. So I think if you look at the state houses that we've got now, a lot of them sit on a lot of land that's poorly utilised. I think redeveloping that land by putting a higher density of state houses on there, and it doesn't all have to be state housing either. So if you take away one state house, build 4 new houses, one or two of those could end up being private homes because it makes for a better community, frankly, to have a mix of them. As long as you're increasing the overall number of state houses, I think that's how you grow the affordable rental market.
So that was a kind of a strategic error to be out in the market with first home buyers.
I think it was a needs-must situation. We had people who were homeless. You needed to find somewhere to house them. But one of the reasons I was really keen on us ramping up state house builds was so that we're not competing with first home buyers.
Newstalk ZB 1024.
Right now at Order Hearing Clinic, we'll double your Super Gold discount with 10% off our optimal and premium range of hearing aids, or 20% off if you bring a Super Gold friend along to your free hearing check. That could save you up to $2,000. Love your ears with double your Super Gold hearing aid discount at Audica. To find out more, visit audica.co.nz or call 0800 00 3880. Offer ends 30 September 2024 and not available with any other offer or discount.
This Saturday morning, Jack Tame talks gardening with Rude Kleinpast thanks to Still Shop. Don't miss Still Shop's biggest sale ever this spring. Gardening every Saturday morning with Still Shop, only on Newstalk ZB.
All the super shops.
Today, up and down the country, trusted mechanics at Auto Super Shops are working on a Hilux in Henderson, a Triton in Twizel, and a Ranger in Riccarton. Whether using your wagon for trekking through the mud, running the kids to rugby, or just picking up the groceries, make sure you take your pride and joy to a premium mechanic who knows utes. No matter where you are in the country or the city, there's an Auto Super Shop near you.
It's the place to stop. Your Auto Super Shops.
We're New Zealand's mechanic.
Thinking of renovating or building? The Auckland Home Show is back and it's better than ever. Discover New Zealand's largest home renovation expo featuring thousands of products and cutting-edge ideas. Explore the latest in kitchens, bathrooms, interiors and outdoor living. Get inspired by renovation trends, receive expert advice and discover exclusive deals from over 450 exhibitors. Don't miss the Auckland Home Show, on now at the Auckland Showgrounds. Grab your tickets online now and save at aucklandhomeshow.co.nz.
Buy more, get more, do more with Stanley Fatmax. Right now, spend $349 or $449 on any Stanley Fatmax power tool or outdoor tool, and you can choose your redemption bonus from a selection of 22 products. 22. There's bound to be something you need from that range, but be quick. Offer ends September 30. With 22 redemption products to choose from, you really can do more with Stanley Fatmax. Offer exclusive to participating Mitre 10 stores. T's and C's apply.
Are you looking for new carpet? For 6 days only, Carpet Court has show-stopping deals on selected ranges. Head into one of their Auckland-wide stores and save up to 50% on a range of top-selling carpets. Hurry, ends Tuesday, only at Carpet Court.
Talk back with Chris Hipkins on Kerre Woodham Mornings with pinnaclelife.co.nz. Easy online life insurance. Call 0800 80 1080. Newstalk ZB.
Newstalk ZB. Grant will get you on before the news headlines. A very good morning to you.
Hey, Kerre, how are you?
Good.
Good. Thanks for taking my call. Hey, you and I had a chat last week or the week before, I believe it was, around the second COVID inquiry.
Yeah.
And I think the consensus then was that an apology would go a long way for people like myself who were on the wrong end of mandates. Obviously, we're hearing a lot about division and unity and coming together. I'd just like to ask, Chris, it's my first opportunity to speak to someone who was in the previous Labor government. Does he not think, for someone like myself, who voted Labor before I voted for Jacinda the first time, that it would go a long way to get people like myself on side if he'd just apologise for the things that he got wrong?
Yeah, we've got the first Royal Commission report is due out, I think, around November, it's due to the government around November. And I've said that I'll await the findings of that first Royal Commission report before we make any judgments on that. I had a pretty open session with the Royal Commission, which I understand from what they fed back to me will be reflected in the report, including reflecting on areas where I thought we could have done better. So, but I'm going to await the final, or the final report of the current Royal Commission before I make any call on that.
You have said, though, that you think with the benefit of hindsight you wouldn't have kept Auckland locked down.
Yeah, I think there's a few things that I reflected in my conversation with the Royal Commission, bearing in mind I had my first conversation with them over a year ago now, because these things take a long time. But I reflected on that Auckland lockdown, and I also reflected on the exit from COVID-19, from our sort of COVID suppression elimination strategy, that actually, when you're responding to the pandemic, you're focused on responding to the here and now. No one gives you a book that says this is how it ends, this is how you get out the other side of it. And actually, if anything, I think that was probably one of the weaker parts. I think we actually did really well in the beginning around the suppressing it and then eliminating it and avoiding too many lockdowns and so on. It got messy at the end. And I think that is, from my perspective, that's actually one of the big lessons from it. You have to have a clearer exit strategy, and you have to think further ahead to that exit strategy. Even as you're dialing up the response, you need to think about how you're going to dial it down again at the other end.
I think, Grant, too, was it you I was talking to, or somebody who said that they took great comfort from Jacinda Ardern at the time, saying nobody would be forced to have vaccinations. Making your employment dependent on being vaccinated it's dancing on the head of a pin to say that nobody was forced. And I think that's where a lot of people feel a lot of hurt and a lot of betrayal.
Yeah, and I do hear that, and I understand that. I have to tell you that the issues around vaccination were some of the hardest that we dealt with through the COVID-19 period. We were trying to keep New Zealanders safe. We were trying to stop the spread of the virus. We were trying to keep the economy moving. We had, bearing in mind that we had a lot of people who were refusing to go to work if there were unvaccinated people in their workplace. There was a lot that we were trying to balance up there. And anybody who thinks that all of that decision making didn't sit heavily on the people who were making those decisions, it really did. It was hard going.
Does that answer your question, Grant?
Well, not really, Kerre, I'll be honest. I mean, it's all well and good to say that at the time it was hard decisions, and I understand that, but we already have the benefit of hindsight now, Chris. And I mean, I think even you must realise by now, people like myself, 3 years on, no COVID, no vaccinations, all I'm asking for, mate, is I get that it was hard at the time. All I'm asking for is simply to say, look, I'm sorry, we got it wrong.
I don't.
And it just, I mean, as I said to Kerre when I rung last time, it appears from the outside looking in that no matter what happens and no matter what side the politicians are on, you're all just incapable of apologising when you get things wrong.
Well,
there's always some qualification, like whether it's, we all had choices to make, rather than just saying, look, now with the benefit of hindsight, we were wrong. It's always, I'm going to wait for this, and you know the answer. It just seems to be too hard to say, look, yes, we got it wrong.
During the COVID-19 response period where we did, clearly get things wrong, I actually stood up in front of the country, in many cases on a live, television broadcast and admitted that we'd got things wrong. On the issues of vaccination, though, if you follow the science, and again, I think the Royal Commission have been tasked with, canvassing the science, canvassing whether we did get the balance right there. Getting a high vaccination rate in New Zealand is one of the reasons why those who were not vaccinated actually were safer and were better off. So in some cases, there are people who couldn't be vaccinated for various health reasons and so on. And so that's why I'm saying we'll await the Royal Commission. I'm not convinced that the high vaccination rates that we got in New Zealand were the wrong thing to do. In fact, I think that the science almost certainly is going to show that it was the right thing to do.
Newstalk ZB, it's 10:33.
Newstalk ZB Auckland. Time saver traffic.
Good morning. South of Auckland, there's a crash. State Highway 2 by Dobson Road. This is near Mangatawhari. Expect delays or avoid that area if you can at the moment. The northern is heavy citybound Rosedale to Sunnynook. The northwestern, moderate citybound Arch Hill to Newton. And the southern is moderate citybound before Green Lane. Anything else? 0800 jammed is the number to ring. 0800 52 66 33. Tim Roxburgh, Time Saver Traffic.
In the event of a cybercrime, it's our business to protect yours. Get AMI cyber insurance for your small business and we'll be on your side against the dark side. AMI, on your side. T's and C's apply.
Run your business like a well-oiled machine on NZ's most reliable mobile network. Search One New Zealand Business Mobile. Plans from $39.13 a month. Awarded by Umlaut in 2024. Fair use and terms apply. Price excludes GST. One New Zealand. Let's get connected.
Harvey Furnishings' Big Spring Clear Out is on now, with up to 80% off a huge selection of ready-mades. Catalan striped cushions and chair pads also half price, but only while stocks last. Go online at harveyfurnishings.co.nz or visit any of the stores throughout the North Island. Don't miss Harvey Furnishings' Big Spring Clear Out, on now. Harvey Furnishings, homes made beautiful.
Every weekend, midday till 3, the big names in sport are on Newstalk ZB's Weekend Sport with GJ Gardner Homes. The team at GJ Gardner Homes build more homes for New Zealanders than any other builder, and they're great supporters of sport. Whether it's on the international stage or at the grassroots, Weekend Sport brings you all the big stories. Weekend Sport, this Saturday and Sunday from midday with GJ Gardner Homes, New Zealand's most trusted home builder. Only on Newstalk ZB.
Want to say I don't know less? Listen to Stuff You Should Know More. Join hosts Josh and Chuck on the podcast packed with fascinating discussions about science, history, pop culture and more. Episodes dive into topics like, was the lost city of Atlantis real? And how does pizza work? Say goodbye to I don't know, because after listening to Stuff You Should Know, you will. Listen to Stuff You Should Know on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Newstalk ZB headlines.
With Blue Bubble taxis, it's no trouble with a blue bubble. Residents in Auckland's Grey Lynn are feeling shaken after a shooting last night which left one person dead. One person with critical injuries died at the scene on Tuarangi Road, and 3 others are in hospital with gunshot wounds. Police will shortly give an update on a woman's unexplained death on the coast out from Dargaville last month. Joanna Sione-Loaki's body was found at the start of last month between Omamari and Aranga beaches. A pick, the Reserve Bank will cut the official cash rate again next month before pausing for summer. NZIER has released its quarterly predictions, forecasting the central bank won't cut for a third time in November, rather preferring to wait to resume measured easing in February. Councils have until 5 p.m. today to decide what they want to do about Māori wards. The government has given them the option of either dropping their Māori ward altogether or keeping them in place until a public referendum next year. Duval's legal tsunami, 8 court cases pending against businesses. You can find out more about that at NZ Herald Premium. Now back to Kerre Woodham.
Susie, thank you. It is 23 minutes to 11. We have opposition leader, Labour leader Chris Hipkins here. What haven't we touched on? Oh, I know, capital gains tax, wealth tax, inheritance tax. Surely you must adopt that to get some kind of differential between.
I think we will have quite a different tax policy next time, and it will involve broadening New Zealand's tax base. I think it is absolutely time for us to have that conversation as a country. It's time for us to do something about it.
No, but see, do something about it because we've had the conversation.
That's what I'm saying.
You commissioned the tax working group.
That's right. But so we're working through that now. But we will be going into the next campaign with a plan to do something about it.
A capital gains tax.
Well, it'll be something in that space. You know, we're working through the design of what that will be. The Michael Cullen report provides a really good blueprint. The subsequent work by the IRD also provides further evidence. So we're working through that. But I want to be able to answer all the detailed questions when we do put our policy out.
Basically, it is, as Sir Michael recommended, a capital gains tax would differentiate. You've got a really hardcore group of people with it, capable people within your own party who want to see it happen.
I think there'll be a form of capital taxation, and that will certainly be part of the mix.
I'm just seeing your billboards. Borrow more, tax more, vote Labour.
Well, yeah, that's certainly what the National Party will try and do to us.
No, but that's what you've told me. Well, you want to borrow more, and then you want to put a. I mean, you
not
not
necessarily, because it depends also how you apply any money that you earn from a capital gains tax. So you can apply that to infrastructure spend. You can also apply it to adjusting personal income tax brackets. I have said that I think that we shouldn't, leave large gaps between income tax brackets adjustments, as has happened under successive governments previously. But if you're going to adjust them more regularly, you have to broaden the tax base in order to be able to do that. So at the moment, salary and wage earners pay a disproportionate share of the tax that the government collects relative to others. And if you compare us to Australia, to the US, to the UK, to all those other countries that we compete with for talent, actually they don't tax people, salary and wage earners, to the same extent proportionately as New Zealand does.
How would you encourage there to be more salary and wage earners? Because we have got an ageing population. We saw that when we closed the borders and depended on New Zealanders to fill the gaps, there weren't enough of them.
Well, there are certainly plenty of working age Kiwis.
Yeah, but there weren't enough workers.
Yeah, but we've also got to be careful around the population growth, that we don't grow the population to the point where we can't keep up with population growth. So there is a balance to be had here about making sure that we're getting the workers that we need whilst not growing the population so fast that we run out of houses and that the infrastructure gets choked up and so on. We've got to build the under the ground infrastructure to cope with population growth. So I'm certainly not saying we shouldn't grow the population, but we've just got to make sure we've got a plan around how we actually properly fund that.
And where would the taxes come from if we broaden the tax base? If we're not looking at wage and salary earners, how do we get to people who aren't paying their fair share?
Well, that's where you look at issues around capital gains taxation, wealth taxation, land taxation. Those are all, there's variants of those in operation around the world.
Workers.
Not necessarily, no. So you've got it. So if you take someone who owns 20 rental properties,
well, there's not many of those.
There are actually quite a few people, and they control an awful lot of the country's wealth, and they won't be paying a fraction of the tax that somebody who is a salary and wage earner is paying relative to their overall income, and I think that is a problem with the current tax system.
If you're depending on having enough money to spend coming from people who own 20 rental properties, we're going to be in big trouble.
Look, I've always been clear that we should avoid things like taxing someone's family home. So even if we were going to do something like a capital gains tax, we should exempt the family home from that. So therefore, it would be targeted at the people who are, by definition, having
still not going to be
more
enough money.
More. Well, capital gains tax, if you look at Australia, where they get billions of dollars through capital gains tax every year, they introduced a capital gains tax in 1985. The longer that you have a capital gains tax in place, the more revenue that it raises.
Wouldn't it be better to make New Zealand more productive rather than just taking from people who are productive?
Well, capital gains tax or some form of capital gains taxation can actually be part of the picture about making New Zealand more productive. At the moment, if you've got spare money to spend, actually the finance adds up. It makes good commercial sense to be investing in residential property. If we change that dynamic so it makes more sense for people to be investing in productive businesses instead, we could actually make the whole country more productive.
I think a lot of small business owners would see that you've put barriers to productivity in terms of so much interfering in the workplace, in terms of rather than letting them get on and build good employer-employee relations, you don't trust employers to do that.
Well, if you're talking about increasing the minimum wage, actually increasing wages is a feature of increased productivity.
Yep, but you put the cart before the horse. You increased the wages before they could prove their productivity. I mean, most of small and medium business owners, they have to have good staff. Well, they have to look after them to keep them.
I mean, if you look at economies around the world where productivity has been driven upwards, increasing wages has been one of the things that's helped to drive productivity upwards. So it does shift the dial a bit around government, around firms investing in new capital equipment, new plant, and so on.
Asking about charities and Māori trusts and the like, and taxation. Got a couple of texts on that. Would you expect charities and religious organisations and Māori trusts to pay tax?
I think
broadening the tax.
It really
space.
depends on the purpose of the charity, whether it's a genuinely charitable purpose or whether it's a business masquerading as a charity. And there are some businesses that masquerade as charities. And I do think that's an area of the tax law that I understand the current government are looking at. Well, let's see what they come back with. But if they come back with something sensible in that space, we'll support it.
Newstalk ZB, it is 17 to 11.
Smith & Smith Repair. Smith & Smith Replace.
When you get a chip on your windscreen, you need to get it checked and repaired right away, as it could crack at any time. Book your repair in 3 minutes at smithandsmith.co.nz. Just enter your number plate and select your preferred location, date and time. Or visit your local Smith & Smith and we'll usually be able to repair your windscreen while you wait. Don't wait for it to crack. Get your windscreen repaired now.
Smith & Smith Repair. Smith & Smith Replace.
Visit goodhomeproducts.co.nz and watch the online video that everyone's sharing. It's about a proven DIY product called Curtain Wizard. It removes mold instantly from your curtains, blinds and drapes. With Curtain Wizard, you don't need to take your curtains down. You just spray and the mold goes away instantly. Shop online today for Curtain Wizard and you'll get a 1 litre pack for just $39.99 plus delivery. Visit goodhomeproducts.co.nz.
Doc.
What's wrong?
Google. It keeps making changes to my Google Merchant Centre account.
True, they are tinkering a lot at the moment.
It's throwing me off my game. With tax cuts and interest rate drops, I can smell growth in the air. Can you help?
The Wonkery team are experts in all things Google, so yes, we can. We can help with the Merchant Centre and shopping ads, ready for the upcoming Black Friday and Christmas season.
Did you say Christmas?
Ho, ho, ho.
Let's get busy then.
Done.
Webwonks.com.
Dream big, sleep better with Beds R Us and enjoy up to 60% off a huge range of selected sleepyhead. Plus, find your perfect match in minutes with Sleep Map. Only at Beds R Us, where dreams begin.
At Ryman, they believe retirement is a chapter of life filled with possibilities and aims to help you make it the best chapter yet. Choosing a village lifestyle is about opening up a world of opportunity. Whether you're a social butterfly or more of a homebody, Ryman Villages offer a strong sense of community. Their doors are always open and they would love for you to come and experience it for yourself. Search Ryman to find out more.
Wake up colourful with Centrum multivitamins for men and women. With multiple health benefits like energy and immune support in just one tablet, add Centrum to your morning to help you get through the day every day. Always read the label, use as directed. Dietary supplements do not replace a balanced diet. Hayley on Auckland.
Honest, unfiltered, no holds barred. Kerre Woodham Mornings with Pinnacle Life. Get a life insurance quote in just 30 seconds. Newstalk ZB.
That'll teach me. Although these are much better, aren't they? We've invested in infrastructure since you were last here, so isn't it?
Structure,
yes, so
a huge improvement in infrastructure.
Now, leadership. Everybody, I mean, of course they do. As soon as you get somebody who leads a party to defeat, everybody says, "Oh, well, time to change the leader." But it took so jolly long for Labour to get a leader last time round. Before Jacinda took over, that was what cobbled Labour a lot last time round. You had a popular Prime Minister under Key. But even then, as his popularity started to fade, you didn't have anyone ready. So you led them to defeat. There must have been some sabre rattling.
Oh, look, I mean, I took the summer holidays to think about whether I had it in me to do not only another term in opposition, but then actually subsequent terms in government.
Because
should we win the election?
Sucks, doesn't
Opposition does suck, but actually you can't just think about that. You have to, if you're going to go into the election campaign, you have to go into the campaign aiming to win and ready to govern again if you do win. And so that means you're not thinking about the next 3 years, you think about probably the next 10. And so I did take the summer holidays to think about that and to think, have I got 10 more years, at least 10 more years of this in me? And I do. I had.
Well, you're young.
I had basically, if you take the election campaign out of it, I was only the Prime Minister for about 6 months.
Yeah, but you were a key minister throughout.
Yes, I was. But being Prime Minister is quite a different job, and you get a different, it's a whole different set of pressures and, different set of influence that you have as Prime Minister. And I had about 6 months at it. So, I'd like to do it again because, I learned a lot during that 6-month period. I'm determined that we're going to use this time that we've got in opposition to make sure that we do go into government better prepared next time around.
Yeah, see, that's the thing that really got up my snoz. I think the last time we talked, when you said, when we came to government last time, we weren't ready. What on earth were you all doing for 9 years on the taxpayer dollar if you weren't ready to govern?
I mean, we actually only had 9 weeks, Kerre, so we changed the leader 9 weeks before the election.
It doesn't matter. Shouldn't people who have policies be working so hard on them in the background?
Oh, absolutely.
With a very clear idea about how they wanted to see those portfolios take shape the moment they were in a position to do so.
And actually, I'll go back and I'll say, the education policy that we put forward at the last election, the 2017 election, was one of the most comprehensive that we did, and we were focused on implementing it until COVID came along and turned everything upside down.
Bruce, you have a question. Hello, Bruce.
Yes. Yeah, hi, Kerre. Look, my question is around, you're talking about productivity, but productivity has always been linked to a lot around access to finance. And in New Zealand, we've only got access to about 4 large banks. And I work with a lot of SMEs, so it's my role. I facilitate boards for small people. And the thing that strikes me in New Zealand versus places like the old Germany, which actually has thousands of small banks. China, when you think Xi Jinping, when he came in 78, set about creating 5,000 banks, and it was the revolution of those countries in terms of smaller businesses being able to access finance, which for most small businesses in New Zealand is impossible. Is it your belief that that's where our productivity is actually missing and tied up because of the inability to access finance to push through machinery, which is part of the reason why we're so poor in terms of our productivity stats in the OECD, et cetera, et cetera. So,
interesting question.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I'll probably give you 3 quick answers on that. One is I do think we need more competition in the banking sector. The second is I do think we need more development finance and more of a focus on development finance. If you look at other smaller innovative economies, development finance is more readily available.
When you say development finance, I remember DFC.
Oh, exactly. And we had, since the DFC, we haven't had any kind of emphasis on development finance because it created such a hangover for the country. And so we've been reluctant to do things in that space. But we need to figure out how we can make development finance more available to small businesses.
Wouldn't this be a fantastic opportunity for Kiwi Bank to sort of like become the bank for small business and to actually own that space?
I would love to see Kiwi Bank growing and being a real disruptor in the banking sector and an innovator there. So yes, I do think there's more space for that. But the other thing about the productivity is we do need to be realistic about when we're talking about productivity as a primary sector-led country. We shouldn't compare ourselves to other countries that might be, say, tech sector or services sector led and compare productivity between those countries, because the primary sector is very productive compared to other primary sector around the world, but primary sector is, say, less productive per dollar spent than the tech sector, for example. So we need to make sure that we're comparing apples with apples when we talk about productivity, because our primary sector actually is very productive, probably doesn't get the credit that it's due for the level of productivity, but it's by definition a less productive sector. Kerre, you're looking at me like
our primary sector doesn't get the credit that it's due. Whose fault's that?
I think the whole country probably underestimates the value that the primary sector contribute and how productive they are compared to other primary sectors around the world.
Newstalk ZB, it is 7 to 11.
Are you looking for new carpet? For 6 days only, Carpet Court has show-stopping deals on selected ranges. Head into one of their Auckland-wide stores and save up to 50% on a range of top-selling carpets. Hurry, ends Tuesday, only at Carpet Court.
This Sleep Timber, get great bedding deals at Harvey Norman, like 50% off selected pillows. Percentages are off the normal ticketed price. Offer ends 24th of September. Get more Sleep Timber bedding deals in-store and online at Harvey Norman.
Saturday afternoon, it's the Weekend Collectors One Roof radio show with Conroy Removals, celebrating 50 years and always moving with the times. With property market trends, leading insights and more, it's the One Roof radio show with Conroy Removals, Saturday from 4 on Newstalk ZB.
Visit goodhomeproducts.co.nz and watch the online video that everyone's sharing. It's about a proven DIY product called Curtain Wizard. It removes mold instantly from your curtains, blinds and drapes. With Curtain Wizard, you don't need to take your curtains down. You just spray and the mold goes away instantly. Shop online today for Curtain Wizard and you'll get a 1 litre pack for just $39.99 plus delivery. Visit goodhomeproducts.co.nz.
Rebel's MVP deals are back with a fresh spring lineup with hand-picked deals on sports gear, footwear and clothing, dropping just in time for summer sports. Make your picks in-store and online with MVP deals till September 15 at Rebel Sport.
So, what do you think?
I didn't know your grandkids had been finger painting, Brian.
Oh, and I thought I'd captured Bob perfectly.
Looks more like a sausage than a sausage dog.
Okay, then let's see your painting.
Oh, feast your eyes.
Masterpiece. It looks just like Bob's breakfast.
Oh, well, maybe we'll have better luck at pickleball this afternoon.
Retirement living at Arvida. Life your way. Visit arvida.co.nz.
You wouldn't buy a car off a dealership without a warrant of fitness. So why would you buy a tiny home without a CCC? That's a code compliance certificate, and every House Me tiny home comes with one. That's not something everyone else can say. Ask them if you like. CCC more at houseme.co.nz or call 0800 468 736. House Me, the biggest name in tiny homes.
We've got 2 minutes. So you will be leading Labour into the next election against Christopher Luxon?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. You think Christopher Luxon will be there?
I'd say that's a 50-50 equation at the moment. You know, I'd say keep your eye on Nicola Willis.
Oh. Well, she's very capable, absolutely. What are you most optimistic about in terms of New Zealand having come through the doldrums?
I'm optimistic about the future of New Zealand's economy because I think there's a lot to look forward to. If you look at one of the things which I think we are underestimating in terms of how it's going to support our economy in the future is KiwiSaver. We have this big pool of retirement savings that are now starting to be invested in New Zealand. And if you look at how, Australia is about 20 years ahead of us in terms of their retirement savings, but that's one of the reasons that they have done better than us.
Compulsory KiwiSaver,
and KiwiSaver is one of the things. Well, I'm putting it on the table. We'll give you an answer before the election as to whether or not that's something we'll campaign on. But I'm open to considering that.
So yes.
I'm not announcing that today, Kerre, but I do think KiwiSaver is a fantastic legacy, another one of Michael Cullen's great legacies for the country. But I think that is actually going to help to grow the New Zealand economy. I think that investment that we're going to see through retirement savings being invested back into the economy, I think that's one of the reasons for us to be optimistic.
Can we do a raising of the retirement age or so that those who work with their bodies, who get knackered, can we do a finessed raising of the retirement age?
The point that you've just raised is the reason that I'm opposed to raising the retirement age, because for people who have been physically demanding work, it wouldn't be fair on them. One of the reasons that we've got such acceptance of New Zealand superannuation is that it is universal. Everybody does get it. But we've got to make sure that we're preparing now to pay for the retirement boom that's pretty much on us.
And there's your slogan: borrow more, tax more.
That is not true, Kerre. You haven't been listening to what I've been saying.
History Never Repeats is your song choice. Very nice to have you in again, Chris Hipkins, Labour leader, opposition leader.
Great to be here.